afternoon gets to be interesting, but it's turning out to be very, very inspiring with every session that's coming our way. And the next one is a point where the masters talk on a subject and discuss much more into. And the best part is the subject that we're going to talk about is digitalization. Yes, big, impactful. The world is evolving around it. Key to unlock tangible business outcomes. And we're delighted to have a set of Socrates as our panel members who are going to share their thought on this. Please welcome CDO Bharat Forge, Mr. Yogesh Zope, along with Group CIO Verock, Mr. Vinod Kode, along with the head of digital products and IoT Airtel business all the way from US, Ms. Sundi Raman. Joining the three is going to be Vice President and Head Digital and Innovation, RPG Enterprise, Mr. Samip Mutha, and along with them is going to be MD Accenture Strategy, Mr. Prabhajit Didyala. And mastering the chair is going to be someone very special who owns all the power and charm to bring about the best point of discussion every time you see and witness or listen to. I'm delighted to welcome our session chair, Dr. Sumit D. Chowdhury, Chairman at GAIA, ex-CIO of Geo, Brookfield and Arcom, partner with IBM and KPMG. Ladies and gentlemen, this is digitalization, key to unlock tangible business outcomes. And over to our moderator.
Thank you. Thank you for introducing the panel. And I look forward to talking to all of you about what is going on in smart manufacturing. It's interesting. I started my career about 30 years ago with Philips, where we were doing PLC integration and where the factories were very first time introducing digitalization. They were essentially saying that things that were being done through cranks are now going to be done through PLCs. And it has been a huge journey for the last 30 plus years, where now we have got completely automated plants where there is hardly anybody working in there. Now, how did we go about getting to this point? I've got an amazing panel with me today, and all of the people on the panel are people who have spent this time bringing about this change. What is smart manufacturing? There are lots of definitions. Let's not get stuck with definitions. It is about making sure that a man, a machine, and a process can come together and efficiently, very, very efficiently produce the product or the service that is being produced by the company, by the factory. Are we able to do things better? Are we able to do things faster? Are we able to do it with the finesse and the quality that the world is expecting from Indian manufacturing today? This is something that has always plagued us. We have been good in manufacturing, but not the best. And the reason is the improvement in quality, the improvement in the kind of products, the kind of material that we are using in our manufacturing. So smart manufacturing is not just about introducing IoT. It is not just about introducing digital products. It is not just about using data. It is about a combination of all of this to improve the quality of what we are producing, to improve the quantity of what we are producing, and finally, producing it at cost that is competitive in the world. You know what we are competing against. We are competing against the giant, the dragon, and that competition we have already beaten in many, many different ways. So there is no reason why we shouldn't be able to do it in almost all of them. And today we have with us Yogesh. Yogesh has been with Bharat Forge for 24 years and has run a whole lot of different parts of the business, including Kalyani Technologies. He's an alum of IMB and University of Erlangen. I am going to start with you, Yogesh, and ask you the first question. And this question, I'm starting with you because of, Bharat Forge. You have talked about Industry 4.0 for quite some time. You've talked about digitalization, and in every annual report, you have got a special section on what you're doing. And please tell us, is it just installing digital machines, or have you gone way beyond it? What success have you had in implementing and utilizing data from these digital machines and producing what you're doing faster, better, and cheaper. So over to you, Yogesh, and tell us your experiences while you're at it.
Thank you, Sumit. Sumit, the journey of Bharat Forge in Industry 4.0 is quite interesting. This we started, as you rightly said, we started a few years back, and it started with visit to Fraunhofer, Germany, and then setting up a core team to deploy Industry 4.0. But then in the thought process, we realized that only thinking of deploying Industry 4.0 is not sufficient, because you have to take your company to the next level in terms of skill sets. So the first thing we did was we set up the 4 industrial IoT labs, and with a purpose to reskill all our 2,500 engineers. There actually, and it is like a boot camp of army, like 6 weeks exhaustive program where each engineer has to run through the skill sets. And what do you mean by skill sets? Skill sets is like basics of hydraulics, pneumatics, mechatronics, robotics, and then taking it to the next level of sensorization and how to use sensorization in all these. So means it is something like that. At the end of boot camp, person has to actually build a model of factory, build industrial IoT dashboard, and deliver those. Purpose is not to make everyone expert in this. Purpose is, of course, is to eliminate the fear of technology from the mind. And then second most important is the person is working on that press or machine for very long time. He understands that machine much well than any other IT or digital person. So how that person should see the possibilities of looking at his machines differently. And that's where we started putting a lot of effort. I will say in our journey, 60% effort, or more than 60%, I would say, were spent on bringing that culture of looking things differently. And then we started our actual journey of technology, I would say. And that's where we started first connecting our machines. Like we started with forging presses, and then we moved towards the machining side of it. Right now, as I'm telling you, all our forging presses are connected and machining lines are on the verge of getting connected. The all the energy utilities, which is obvious for many oil and gas companies, or those, or I'll say telecom companies, but then manufacturing still was behind in this domain. So which we started doing. Secondly, the quality part, as you rightly said, the world has changed phenomenally, especially if you see our business, the market cost is driven by steel. And then how do you improve quality of steel? How do you improve the quality of your production? How do you change the speed? How do you optimize your process? And everything has to be aligned with the goal. So first goal which we took during those time was eliminating the downtime to zero, unplanned downtime for hydraulics, pneumatics, and electronics. And I think within the journey of 2 years, we reached there actually, of zero down unplanned downtime. Of course, with the help of sensors, with help of predictive, and with help of knowledge from the shop floor workers. And next phase, of course, we are trying to integrate. I think I will come back to next question on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Yogesh. I think what you talked about in terms of changing the culture, changing the culture of ensuring that the people are going to adapt to this change, because this change that has been introduced through digitalization is going to constantly change. There is nothing going to be static. Every day you're going to bring in a new process, and once they get into the habit of adopting and taking data for decision making, it will not be based on gut. I still feel that a lot of people, both in factories as well as in business, use a lot of gut based data decision making. How do we move them to data driven decision making? I'll now move over to Vinod. Vinod has been with Varroc for quite some time. He's had experience both, not actually with Varroc, not for too long, but he's had 24 years of experience both in US and in India, working with Cummins and KPIT. I think he brings a lot of knowledge as well as the automation that has happened with KPIT Cummins, I think they have been instrumental in bringing about some of this automation in industry. So, Vinod, over to you. Tell us a little bit about the journey that you have gone through, the kinds of projects that you have done, and also the kind of systems that you have deployed to automate your function. And we'll come back to the second question later, as you suggested.
Okay. So just a little correction. Been with Varroc for a year now.
Yeah.
Exactly 1 year, and then before that with Cummins. So almost like 16 years in manufacturing domain, IT of manufacturing. So talking about the kind of system that we are using at Varroc or we've been deployed. So SAP is the ERP. Then we have analytics on ClickView. Then on shop floor, various traceability solution, MES solution, RFID, vision system for quality, as you were saying, to get the finesse, and then other things like. So we and then apart from that, for collaboration, we are using Office 365 across the board, and SharePoint for workflows, and we have built some good tools in the last 10 months using Power Automate, Power Apps, and some services from Azure for form recognizer, vision, chatbot, like with Story getting into the AI machine learning space, graduating from there. So these are the application. And then again, as we heard in the earlier discussion with Mr. Deepak Bagla, is India, as you know, is a place of, jugaad. So trying to think frugal. And so you can do an RPA using a bigger tool, but you try to do RPA with smaller tools as well. So we are doing a lot of things in that area. So these are, I think, the landscape, the major landscape we have. And there are a few more things which we have starting working on this year is having a state-of-art human capital management, graduating from what we have to something which is on like SaaS mindset. So we are adopting a method of cloud first and a mobile first approach. So contract lifecycle management, HCM, PLM, and things like that. Then IoT journey for us has just started. Like as compared to Yogesh, we, as he said, that manufacturing is a little bit catching phase. So we have just started putting all those sensors in the plant and taking all this data to our cloud, which is Azure, and trying to do the analytics based on that, trying to get the OE and energy management. So we just started that journey.
Wonderful. I think that the start of the journey the more analytics that you do on the data, IoT has been there for a long time, but I don't think that too many people are spending time really analyzing the data that is coming out of there and taking the action that is going to be there. But that's good. That's fine, because if you don't have the data, you won't be able to do any of the analytics later on. So understanding the patterns, I think this is the time of that instrumentation. We'll come back to the second question on the gaps, Vinod, which we talked about. And before we go in, and I wanted to introduce Sundi Raman is the head of digital products and IoT for Airtel. He has been with Amazon, AWS, Marchex, and Microsoft and Avaya. He's an IIT Madras graduate and a master's from Ohio State. Done a lot of work with 15 years of experience building teams in different geographies. So, Sundi, one of the things that we keep hearing about, I'm a telecom guy, so I'll take a hit with you along with this, is that we talk a lot about IoT, but we end up going and selling SIM cards to our customers. I mean, I'm equally to blame for it, so I don't take it personally. I just wanted to understand. I know that Airtel has a big team in the back. You're working on a lot of products in IoT. Tell us a lot about what you are investing in the smart manufacturing space. Where do you see Airtel contributing to it? And lastly, are you eating your own dog food? Are you actually introducing digitization and technology into your own operations? Because Airtel is running one of the largest telecom network in the country, in fact, in the world. So how much of automation has gone into that? Because that is also a factory for all practical purposes. I've been in the telecom business long enough to know that. So over to you, Sundi. Look forward to hearing your insights about Airtel's contribution in this.
Thanks, Sumit, and thank you very much for inviting me to this forum. Very honored to be part of this elite a bunch of folks here. If you look at smart manufacturing or digitization, the bedrock of that is connectivity, right? It starts there. You have to either you connect the sensors, or you connect your offices to, or you actually do some connection back to your Office 365. All of these requires connectivity. So as this premium telecom operator, we are, of course, going to invest a lot in that layer of connectivity and the innovation there. So, for example, if you look at what we have done with Nokia, their plant in Chennai, we provided a very pointed solution of private LTE for them that enabled them to actually automate the entire factory floor. Now, we played a crucial part there. The other part of the work was done by Nokia team, but it's important to note that that private LTE was the enabler for them to actually achieve the results they were looking for. 16% improvement in OEE, right? 31,000 man-hour saving, right? So a lot of these efficiencies they gain. So from an Airtel standpoint, being a telecom operator, we will go and innovate in this layer of connectivity. We'll sell SIM cards, as you said, absolutely. But we will also create specific solutions on the connectivity layer. Like I talked about private LTE. We are going to 5G. We are trying to bring in NB-IoT right now. All of these connectivity solutions are addressing a unique aspect of different types of IoT needs in smart manufacturing or in other industries, right? So that's one. Beyond connectivity, we are also trying to enable an ecosystem here. Being one of the largest operators with a whole bunch of power of distribution, which is we have a lot of customer base. So they look up to us to actually advise them. We have a lot of startup community that we work with them. So what we are doing there is we are leveraging the strength of ours and we're creating an ecosystem. If you look at smart manufacturing, see, Airtel by itself, we don't know much about manufacturing. We know about telecom and network very well. We want to bring niche technology startups to work with us. And we provide that platform. And the platform we provide there is twofold. One is we provide our connectivity solution, what they need. So we do a much deeper integration in terms of the sensors or devices they are creating. So that when they deploy, it's very easy for us to figure out whether it's a device problem, it's a sensor problem, or the connectivity issue. So this is like the ongoing operations of our IoT deployment. Second part is we want to provide our skill set in terms of data analytics. So we have a huge data science team and analytics team. We run a network of 300 million plus subscribers and 1 million businesses that we interact with. So we have developed a lot of in-house technology skill set as well as solutions in terms of AI and ML. So we want to actually provide that service to the startups to actually take them from more of a rule-based engine solution, which they do today, to more of a AI ML-based solution for doing more predictive kind of stuff, which we all discussed. So thirdly, at some cases, we actually go end-to-end too. For example, we are looking very deeply right now in what we call industrial asset tracking. That is one area of focus of ours. We want to basically see whether we can create value. The reason being that is one of the areas where connectivity plays a very crucial role. You have to connect your assets can be deployed anywhere in India. So cellular connectivity becomes very important there versus some other kind of connectivity. So what we are doing there is we actually are trying to work with device manufacturers. We are trying to work with them. We are trying to create an application layer working with some of the industry experts here who will bring together a technology layer and glue it all together and provide an end-to-end comprehensive solution that will help them monitor and manage their assets that are being deployed pan-India. So the next question you asked was digitization. What is Airtel doing? So I also wear a hat of digitizing Airtel business. So we are a very large business that we run, and right from how we actually allow our customers to discover a solution, how they buy, how they pay, how they manage, the entire life cycle, we are trying to transform right now and bring completely digital muscle to it. So this is B2B side of the house. In the B2C side of the house, which is our 400 million subscribers, if you look at the investments that we have made and the way we have tried to help our consumers interact with us more seamlessly, we have Thanks app, which has around 90 million MAUs, which is like one of the massive adoptions that we have seen. Like that's up in the grade of some of the biggest music players apps out there. So what we are doing there is that one app, and we have a similar version for B2B instance also. In that one place, consumers can come in, businesses can come in and interact with us. They can discover new services from us. They can manage the services. They can raise requests. So now there's less human, more self-service, more empowerment back to the consumers and for businesses. Finally, the network that we own and deploy, as you rightly pointed out, our workforce has been digitized. We have our own workforce management tool that we built it in-house, where our about 70,000 plus field force uses it. And how do they use it? So every day they wake up, they do the attendance all in that app. They get their tasks allocated automatically based on where they are. Then they perform the task in the workforce management tool that we have. We have a complete workflow for them to follow. So they actually are getting assisted by a back office engineer in case they are struggling, or the machine is trying to prompt them to do some steps which they can take. And they can do all of these, and we monitor what they are doing, and the customers also know what is going on in terms of assurance tasks they're performing. So we have kind of completely digitized that entire workforce. And I call it also IoT, because here the human is actually using a device called a phone, and in the phone we have put intelligence for them to guide the human to do the job to the best performance. So we are using our own, and we are actually providing this technology to other companies also. Whoever is interested to actually take our workforce management tool, we are open to collaborating with them, because this tool is developed with a lot of insights in terms of how human labor works. So there are a lot of human workforce management tools which come from outside of India, but they miss the aspect of some of the scenarios about workflow management tasks that needs to be done from an Indian context. So we have to build all that stuff in. How the escalation matrix works in India is very different than what works in US, for example. So these are certain areas where we are trying to invest and enable an ecosystem. So we are not saying that we are building everything ourselves. We actually want to create an ecosystem. So we work with device manufacturers, we work with platform providers, we work with application providers, we work with SI partners, and we are the glue because we own the connectivity layer for many of these applications. So, and then we basically are innovating in that layer and going up the value chain.
Wonderful. I think that was a very good answer to the specific question, Sundi. I think that was what I was getting at, that you are doing actually quite a bit of things in the background, and it makes a lot of sense pulling it all together. I know what you talk about. We also sell an integrated IoT plus workforce management system for the digitization, specifically in this industry, and people know how to beat the system, and we have to, in India, figure out how to beat just people who know how to beat the system in 2 layers of granularity. And we are seeing this in railways, airports, wherever we are operating today. So I'm going to go over to our next panelist, who is Sameep Mutha. And Sameep is with the RPG Enterprise. He's heading their digital and innovation platform. As you know, RPG is across multiple industries, from tires to medical, EPC, IT. They are across multiple different industries. And I would ask him to talk about the different areas that he's talking about: future factories, smart products, connected customers, digital workplace. I think these are some of the things that are core to Sameep's background. So I'll hand it over to Sameep so that he can tell us the exact implementations that he's doing today. Sameep, over to you.
Thanks, Sumit. Am I audible?
You are.
Yep. Thanks, Sumit, and thanks, ET, for inviting me to this forum. When I joined RPG Group, I think this was my first industry job. I came with 10 to 12 years of consulting before that. And I think the word digital itself was we at that point of time, we actually thought it's still a fad. And today we look at it, when we started 5-6 years back, we write our own story in our internal magazine saying that it's our own journey from fad to force. That investment that we did 5-6 years back has become actually central force, where we are possibly enabled our journey where we can do digital at scale. Look, I started my journey back when Six Sigma was one of the highest paid consulting job in the manufacturing, right? So I remember, and today I go into our factory and you ask a supervisor or operator, he will explain you the design of experiment, which I took so much of a pride doing 15 years back, right? Or 16, 17 years back, right? And I see that is happening in digital at a much faster rate. It won't take 15 years. It will happen maybe in another 2 to 3 years. And we are already doing that at scale. Now, when we started our journey, you spoke about those 4 pillars. We said that, see, though I came from a consulting, never a big fan of a digital strategy. We never had a digital strategy. I always believed that business has a strategy. They put in a lot of effort to kind of put together their short-term, long-term, 5-year, 3-year plan. The digital has to work with the business strategy so that it becomes a lot more easier on two front. You never have to ask for money. The money flows and you don't have to struggle for adoption because it is already aligned with the businesses. So I think that one of the biggest challenge that I've seen in the digital is the question of ROI and the question of adoption. If it fails, it will fail at these 2 points. But if you start with the business strategy, trust me, it actually gives you a lot of leap of faith, which is a lot of confidence with the business. I think that went very well with us. When we look back, those 4 pillars that I said, we never started with that. That is looking back, I would have written somewhere. But that has helped us to look at business in all aspects, because if you look at, we have a business which is 400, 500 crore company to a business which is possibly 13, 14,000 crore company. Now we are trying to do digital and innovation at a group level. You can't really go with single agenda that will drive all of them together. It is extremely difficult and one should never try, in my opinion. Now, what we have done is that we said that how digital is going to make impact in each of the businesses. And then we started looking at each of our business and we said, okay, for CEAT, which is already a Deming factory, what next? And we said that it's a company which is the only company which is in the B2B to B2C. And we started actually going very close to the customer by some of the very first time solutions in the industry, whether it's our dealer portal, whether it's our same day claim in the tire industry, because every time the tire is actually down, it is a vehicle down, which means a loss of revenue. So we actually looked at some of the customer facing initiatives to take us closer to the customer, from dealer to the end customer. If you look at an EPC industry, KEC, which is our largest company, though we may say that one can look at from outside as in manufacturing, end of the day, we manufacture those towers and substations but it is an EPC business. What matters to that business is site. What happens at the site, the productivity at site and people's lives at site. Now we invested a lot of case studies and the effort in the entire drones and satellite image analytics. Today, we are one of the leading EPC industries leveraging drones and satellite images, not just for our monitoring the progress of the site, etc., but we've been able to reduce the cost of some of our operations by 17 to 18% in the business, which is wafer thin from margin. So you can imagine the impact that digital can have, okay, in terms of lead time reduction, in terms of cash flow improvement. Our impact in the EPC business using drones has been phenomenal. Similarly, I think the entire safety of people, I think digital has helped us extremely well. Not just safety of people, but when we deal with thousands of subcontractors, the entire workforce management, the Aadhaar integration, face recognition, a blacklisting of people, integration with the skills database of the India. Today, we are any site we want to enable, it is actually a click of a button. We can reach out to all the labor in that zone or a geography where we can enable the start of the project very fast. Now, if you look at in the EPC industry, sooner you start, sooner you finish, sooner you get the money. It's as simple as that, right? This is all about how fast you get the working capital. So, and I possibly for the positive time, I won't go through all the businesses and all the projects, but if you look at, and I'll give one example in each of the businesses just to understand how digital is impacting each of the businesses. In our life sciences businesses, for example, one would say what digital can do when it is such a regulated industry. It is driven by US FDA and all that they breathe is the approval of US FDA and your ability to produce and ensure that you get more and more approvals for more and more drugs and you take it to the market. But our entire US FDA approval process, we realize that digital is at the core of it because what it says in one line is nothing but do what you say and show the proof that you did what you said. Okay, that's what the US FDA in one line actually. Now, digital plays an extremely important role in driving all the compliances, checks and balances. So we were the first company which used the iris scanner because we couldn't even use the biometric. So today our iris scanner doesn't even allow a person access to the machine if he doesn't, if the access is not allowed to him, and also if his skills or his training is expired. So when you do the iris scanner, it actually integrates with skills, it integrates with his role, and then it gives an access. Simple example, but that gives a foolproof mechanism to show to those audit companies saying we are 24/7 ready. So the first thing we did is we said that we will roll it out 24/7 ready for audit. We don't want to be preparing for audit. We are always ready. And then we looked at automatic recipe download and a number of things which ensure that we are always ready. the large part of our businesses in the Rechem and some of the other, even in the CEAT, etc., we've seen the huge shift which is happening from product to product as a service. Today, as we spoke, I think we've actually gone. CEAT Tire is actually on the ground right now in the pilot phase with some of the truck, where we're actually offering to some of our fleet customer. We call it as a CPKM, which is cost per kilometer, which is going to be a game changer. Now, if you look at the entire crux of that is the analytical model, which helps you predict the cost per kilometer, because suddenly your business is going to move from capex to opex, and your ability to predict that cost, and not just predict, going back to them and tell them how to improve it, because it feeds back to you. If you actually take an X paise per kilometer as a target and it actually goes beyond that, is going to hit your margin. So I think how that entire analytics is becoming a differentiator. I remember I was in a discussion with Tom Davenport yesterday, and he wrote this book many years back about differentiating on analytics. Today, we see that it is actually the analytics has become differentiator to many of the industry that we are operating in. Similarly, I think gas meter, we're working on a lot of effort around moving to the gas meter. Today, the utilities companies are coming and saying they've realized that they are in the business of gas, and they're saying that, look, I will provide you gas and offer you a cost which is per unit of a gas that flows through a meter. You handle everything else. Which means a smart meter, which will actually take the reading, leakage detection, billing, collection, whatever it is. They're saying that if you are providing a smart meter, which is entirely changing a game, we are actually a 60% market share in the gas meter when it comes to mechanical meter. But a smart meter changes the entire business model. And I'll just summarize saying that, see, a lot of time, the change to a technology is easier compared to the change in the business model. And I think the struggle is when you're doing this digital project, end of the day, you're still working with analog minds. And that's a longer journey than a technology journey. Technology journey in a country like India is a lot easier. If you want to do something, if you don't know, you'll find a vendor. If you have not found a vendor, perhaps you've not reached to the right vendor. But you'll find one day how to crack that problem. The biggest problem is a business model change and mindset change. And if you actually focus on that, then the journey becomes a lot more fruitful in the longer journey.
I think that's there. Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much. I think that's the crux of today's discussion across everybody, is that if we get the business aligned, that we'll get there. And that brings me to a very interesting person who's working in the consulting industry, Prabhjit Didyala, from an MD of Accenture Strategy. He's been working in the digital strategy industry 4.0 for quite some time. Prior to this, he's also worked at BCG, DuPont, Fortis Healthcare, and Tata Cummins. And he's a mechanical engineer from BIT Mesra and an MBA from IIM Lucknow. So over to you, Prabhjit. I think the question that I had for you was essentially, when people are introducing smart manufacturing, it is actually impacting the entire value chain from suppliers to customers. And what have you seen? How has these linkages changed when people have introduced smart manufacturing? So over to you, Prabhjit.
So, Dr. Chaudhary, thank you so much for that question. I will talk about some 4 or 5 themes in as many minutes, which sort of will stitch the entire value chain together. So, first off, the lack of technology or the absence of enabling hardware or software is not the reason why people should not go in for digital manufacturing. Double negative, I'm sorry. But essentially what I'm saying is that technology is there. Now, people like me get called in by people like the panelists here to come and do it for them and make it happen. And that's where realities start hitting. Now, digital is fine, it's logical, it's going to give you greater benefit, etc., etc. Now, the standard deviation of practices on the shop floor is so high that one size cannot fit all, and it certainly can't even fit a few. Let me illustrate. If you look at a certain number of shops and try to look at from a blue collar perspective, what is the own versus contract percentage? Looking at that number, it's a scary number. So looking at that number, for many places, you will find that introduction of digital cannot happen where the blue collar person has to interact with some piece of technology because of lack of capability or aptitude or appreciation and so on and so forth. So then people say that, you know what, de-skill kijiye, please de-skill the work. Let the blue collar person just keep on doing the basics and elevate things. And I must say, Bharat Forge has been a pioneer in this thinking. I was guided by some of the interviews that were given by senior management. This is great. In world-class companies, it works. But if you look at the normal run-of-the-mill company, or you look at the not-so-world-class companies, you will be scared by the percentage attrition that you have at a supervisory or at a shift in charge or at a line in charge level. And that's the practical reality. Again, if you take a look at basic processes, you will sometimes find, and I don't want to be a doomsday guy here, but you will find that basic enablers. So is there a philosophy in the manufacturing? Do we understand how is the manufacturing system designed, right? How is the planning happening? You will sometimes be scared by the knowledge that there is no planning. It's a summation of expediting that's happening. With these basics, etc., which are not in place, digital has a shaky foundation to start on. So this is a reality, and hats off to people on this group who are saying that they are able to do it in the shop floor, because I cannot tell you the amount of perseverance, blood, tears and sweat, and sheer hard work and commitment that it takes. So hats off. And that's why it takes so long. But if I look at the 5 themes I wanted to talk about, so I spoke about the practices and how rudimentary they are in some of our shop floors. So let me park that and not elaborate too much. Secondly, even at the level of where you try to introduce these solutions, and for Scrum Masters or DevOps guys, it's easy. We need a business owner and we need this and we need that. When you try to get these skill sets on the shop floor, look, manufacturing guys are very basic guys. Sales guys are suave, and I know I'm making a controversial statement here. And support function people are suave, they get it. Manufacturing guys by nature are very straightforward. Ye banana hai, ye banayenge. Right? Itna banana hai, banayenge. So when you try to get them into multifunctional, polyvalent, multi-skilling kind of roles, they start falling apart. And it is a function of the skill that we give them in our engineering colleges and what have you. Fundamental discussion, let's not get into it. But fact is, lack of capability is the fundamental issue. And the market is not helping either. Salary increments for, let's say, data science and analytics people, before the world turned upside down, before that, if you track for the past 3 years, it was 20 to 25% per annum. Very attractive field to be in, right? And these guys are essential. How do you get them in, right? How do you get the capability? So capability is the second point where fractures start showing up. I think I'm going to just make 2 more points and give it back to you, Dr. Chaudhary. One is that I would like to submit that many people think that digital, especially manufacturing, is like changing a shirt. Right? The other shirt is there, I just put it on. It requires investments. And, if you look at Suneet, if you hear what even Vinod was saying or even Yogesh was saying, they alluded to these points. It requires serious investments. And people get taken aback when you tell them that, look here, you have so much of EBITDA, I'm going to take this percentage of it and it needs to be plowed back into technology. So people struggle to find the money. And I can tell you that with hand on heart. And it's only when you find the money that you take it and you invest part of it in digital and part of it in wherever you want to. That's how the game starts. So all the gentlemen on the call who have managed to make this a success are also masters at actually getting the funding in place and putting it to good use. And that's an unstated fact. So that's one point. And the last point I'd like to leave you with is that manufacturing folks are used to what is called continuous improvement. Thoda sa improvement, then thoda sa more, and so on and so forth. And they are very happy with that. Right? And when you try telling them, and Yogesh made the point, I think the first point he made is looking at things differently. It's very scary for our people on the shop floor. And we may not get it or we may get it. But the point here is that this entire mindset of continuous improvement versus I'm going to change the game and you're going to work differently. requires a lot of comforting hand holding. We like you, you are valuable to us, you are going to be around, we are not going to get rid of you and bring somebody else and stuff like that. So I'd like to make those 5 points, and I hope we see that there is a linkage across the value chain, including at customers' end and so on. In the interest of time, let me just pause here and give it back.
Thank you so much, Prabhjeet. I think you summarized it very well. Change management is the crux of the success of any of these digitization initiatives that everybody is working towards. I think we had a great session today talking about the real life implementations that is being done by Vinod, by Yogesh, Samip, and also the kind of enablement that both of you are doing, Prabhjeet and Sundi. I think the market is waiting for it. We need to, as professionals in this industry, continue to believe that we'll be able to make a difference, and go out and do it every day. I know there are challenges. I mean, I work with railways. The sweeper is my user, and so is the chairman of the railway board. And both sides need to feel valued in the process of doing such a project. So I'll hand it over to you, Mithun, and close this session. I hope we were able to communicate the value of smart manufacturing, the challenges on the ground, and what we can do about it. So looking forward to meeting all of you offline and having further conversations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Indeed, that was what a great time. And also what I liked is all the gentlemen giving a little aspect in terms of what is important and what is going to be important in the coming days. So a big thank you to Dr. Sumit D. Chaudhary for being as brilliant as he's always in mentoring a session. And to all the great speakers, thank you so much for your time. I wish you all great safety, great health, and of course, a safer and futuristic days ahead.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Well, ladies and gentlemen, so much here that we have gained in the last 45 minutes from all our speakers, and such great points to make a note of, gives you a little thought in terms of what is going on, what is going to come our way, and all this with great minds of our speakers. Thank you very much for your time. We have one more session starting anytime soon now. So how about you look at what's coming up next? Here we go.